Welcome back, Sebastian here. So next I'm going to be talking about RB, Racing Bulls, B Carb, whatever you want to call it, the team that was AlphaTauri last year. And the reality is that the storyline coming into 2024 was, I think, pretty wholeheartedly was that Ricciardo was going to come in, he was going to have a great year, and he was going to get that Red Bull seat by the summer break. And the reality is that really hasn't happened. So first, taking a look at the kind of race results that we got so far. So Bahrain, Tsunoda finishes 14th, Ricciardo finishes 13th. Of course, we all remember the kind of Tsunoda getting quite angry at Ricciardo and kind of almost colliding with him after the race. Saudi Arabia, neither driver had a fantastic race there. Tsunoda 15th, Ricciardo 16th. Australia, Tsunoda has a great race, a bit fortuitous with DNFs from Verstappen, Russell, and Hamilton. Finishes in 7th, and Ricciardo finishes outside the points 12th at his home Grand Prix. Then we get to Japan. Tsunoda finishes 10th there, so first points at home for Tsunoda, and Ricciardo of course had that big first lap collision with Albon that led to his DNF. Then we get to China, a pretty bad race for both of them. Tsunoda had Magnussen issues where Ricciardo was strolled. So yeah, double DNF there in China. Then we get to Miami. Ricciardo, we all know, had a great sprint, finished in 4th place there after qualifying 4th. But when we got to the main Grand Prix, Tsunoda, 7th place, benefited a bit with luck from the safety car. Ricciardo finished 15th after a really tough qualifying. And I do think Tsunoda's had a bit of a lucky, he's gotten lucky at some point, particularly Australia and Miami, which has helped him get that big points haul he has. But at the same time, I do think he's been the better of the two drivers to start 2024. So points head-to-head 14-5 in favor of Tsunoda. Average finishing position 11.00 for Tsunoda, and for Ricciardo 11.83. So Tsunoda slightly ahead there. And for these two statistics, average finishing position and average starting position, both of them include those sprint races. So average starting position 12.63 for Tsunoda, 13.38 for Ricciardo. So Tsunoda just shy of a position ahead of Ricciardo on average. Qualifying head-to-head is where there's been the biggest disparity between the two drivers and probably the biggest difference compared to their short time together in 2023. 5-1 in favor of Tsunoda in the main qualifying session, so not including sprint qualifying, which as far as I remember is 2-0 in favor of Ricciardo. Qualifying delta again from those main qualifying sessions, 0.23 in favor, 0.23 seconds in favor of Tsunoda, which is quite different from 2023, where it was 9 thousandths of a second advantage for Ricciardo. So yeah, I think the main difference between Tsunoda and Ricciardo this year has been in qualifying races. They've been, I would say, similar pace, and I think it's really a bit of a surprising result. I would say that if you told me that one of the drivers would be 5-1 in qualifying and it would have a 2/10 advantage, I would have picked Ricciardo before the season. And I do think it brings up some questions about Ricciardo, such as his adaptability to certain types of cars. Apparently the rumor is that the car, the 2023 car is quite different than to the 2024 car in terms of handling, and it's possible that we know Ricciardo was very good at Red Bull, very good at Renault, pretty much a disaster at McLaren, so we know that he may have some issues adapting to certain types of car, which might be what we're seeing here. We also knew we got a new chassis before China, and since then in the 3 of the 4 qualifying sessions he's beaten Tsunoda, so it could be that as well. We just kind of have to wait and see. For points above expected, Tsunoda's done better than expected, 3.72 in the positive, so that's definitely good. And for Ricciardo, negative 4.08. This points above expected is only using the results from the main Grand Prix, so not the sprint. So Ricciardo, since all 5 of his points are from the sprint, he's of course going to be in the negative. And now looking at Racing Bulls, kind of the team and how they've done so far this year. There was a lot, I think expectations were pretty high coming into 2024. We knew that using a lot more of the Red Bull parts, we expected them to kind of make a jump up the order. We weren't really sure where that jump was going to be though. 2022, of course, the first year under the new regulations, they were still using many of their own parts. They finished with 35 points, finished 9th in the Constructors, average pole gap of 1.583 seconds. And they had 16 of those points in the first quarter of the season. 2023, really tough start to the season, only 2 points in the first quarter of the season, but they turned things around, and whether or not, replacing DeVries with a combination of Ricciardo and Lawson was an improvement, it definitely helped in the end, as they ended up with 25 points, 8th in the Constructors. Average pole gap decreased to 1.169, so definitely got closer to the front, although I believe after the first 6 races it was still pretty tough. 2024 though, 19 points already, 6 in the Constructors, and their average pole gap again has improved to 1.052, so about 10th faster than last year, and we'll see if they can get that number under 1, which would be a pretty big achievement, I feel, for any of the smaller teams on the grid. Of course, that 19 points is already almost as good as they got in all of 2023, and I think for their year-end total, I think 80 would be, a bit ambitious. I think they've gotten a bit lucky with some of the results they've gotten, but I can definitely see them ending up with more than 50, which may or may not be good enough for 6. I think that battle for 6th place will be a pretty interesting one to watch between themselves. Alpine, I think, is starting to improve and get closer to the other 2 cars, and I think Haas will also be in that fight, assuming that their upgrades don't make them fall off the face of the earth like they have done in past years. But nonetheless, I think the reality is that it's been a pretty fascinating dynamic to watch between Tsunoda and Ricciardo, after it was kind of expected that Ricciardo would kind of come in, dominate Tsunoda, and he would be well on his way to a Red Bull seat in 2025. That hasn't happened, so I do think it brings up quite a few questions about what the plan is going forward for both of these drivers. We know for Tsunoda, he's kind of a Honda junior driver. He's affiliated with Honda, but he's also a Red Bull junior. So I do think there's a fascinating kind of decision there of, does he stick with Red Bull or does he try to stick to Honda? And if that's the case, may he end up in an Aston Martin seat in the next couple of years. For Ricciardo, we know his goal is Red Bull. I don't think he would be satisfied with simply sticking around at RB for the next 2 or 3 years. And of course, you have Liam Lawson waiting in the wings. Really good, substitute appearance at the end of 2023, and he's definitely itching to get a seat in F1. So I think you have a really fascinating dynamic here between these 2 drivers plus Lawson. Plus, in theory, you have that empty Red Bull seat, or you have that seat at Red Bull where Perez is. And of course, he doesn't have a contract for 2025. So a lot of interesting pieces and storylines at play here at RB to start 2024, and we'll see how it goes as the season progresses. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll be back next time. Goodbye.